The history of Rembrandt and more important art. Rembrandt van Rijn is one of the most renowned artists in the history of Western art, known for his skills as a painter, printmaker, and draftsman. Throughout his career, he created some of the most iconic works of Dutch Baroque art, including portraits, landscapes, and biblical scenes. In this video, we'll explore the life and work of Rembrandt, as well as some of his most famous works and his lasting impact on the art world. Rembrandt. Rembrandt Harmensoen van Rijn, known simply as Rembrandt, is one of the most famous artists of the Dutch Golden Age. He was born in Leiden, the Netherlands, in 1606, into a family of merchants and millers. From a young age, he displayed a great aptitude for drawing and painting, which led him to become an apprentice to Jacob van Swanenburg, a noted painter of historical and religious scenes. At the age of 22, Rembrandt moved to Amsterdam, where he began working as a freelance painter. He was soon noted for his ability to capture emotion and expression in his portraits, as well as his innovative use of light and shadow. Among his first commissions are portraits of well-to-do bourgeois, such as the portraits of Jan VI and his wife. In 1632, Rembrandt married Saskia van Eilenburg, the cousin of his friend and colleague, Hendrik van Eilenburg. Saskia became his main model and muse, appearing in many of his most famous paintings, including The Jewish Bride and Dr. Tulp's Anatomy Lesson. In the decades that followed, Rembrandt reached the pinnacle of his career. His religious and mythological paintings, such as The Night Watch and Samson Betrayed by Delilah, are considered some of the masterpieces of Western art. He also continued to make portraits, such as his son Tito's and his mother-in-law, the elderly Geertje Dirk. However, Rembrandt's fortunes began to decline beginning in the 1650s. His extravagant spending, his art collection, and his investment in an ever larger house led to his bankruptcy. Furthermore, his artistic style was no longer as popular as it used to be, and younger and more modern artists began to outshine him. In 1660, Saskia died of tuberculosis, which plunged Rembrandt into a deep depression. In 1662, his daughter Cornelia His also died, which left him devastated. In the last years of his life, Rembrandt devoted himself mainly to the production of drawings and etchings, which he sold to private collectors. He died in Amsterdam in 1669 at the age of 63. Today, Rembrandt's work is widely recognized as one of the most important in the history of art. His innovative use of light and shadow, as well as his ability to capture emotion and humanity in his portraits, have inspired generations of artists. Furthermore, his engraving technique and his influence on the development of landscape painting have also been widely studied and admired. Rembrandt is undoubtedly one of the great masters of art. Anatomy Lesson by Dr. Nicolaas Tulp. Dr. Nicolaas Tulp's Anatomy Lesson is a masterpiece by Dutch artist Rembrandt van Rijn, created in 1632. The painting depicts a public anatomy lesson, which was held at the Amsterdam Surgeons Guild in January of that same year. In the painting, we see 8 men around a table, encircling the body of an executed criminal, while Dr. Tulp points out the muscles of the corpse's arm with an instrument. The painting is impressive in its detail and in the way Rembrandt uses light and shadow to create a dramatic atmosphere in the scene. The body of the corpse is illuminated by a bright light that contrasts with the dark shadows that extend through the room. The men's faces are illuminated by light coming from the left of the painting, creating a sense of depth and realism. The composition of the work is also remarkable. The men stand in a semicircle around the table, with Dr. Tulp in the center, creating a sense of movement and dynamism in the painting. The faces of the men are different and each one of them has its own expression and gesture, which adds verisimilitude to the scene. But what stands out most about Dr. Nicolaas Tulp's Anatomy Lesson is Rembrandt's ability to capture the emotion and humanity in the scene. Although it is an anatomy lesson, the painting is not simply a technical representation of the human body. Instead, Rembrandt portrays men in a moment of concentration and fascination, suggesting that there is more at stake than just science. It is possible that the painting is also a social critique of the fascination with death and human suffering that existed at the time. Overall, Dr. Nicolai Tulp's Anatomy Lesson is an impressive work that combines Rembrandt's technical skill with a deep understanding of the emotion and humanity in the scene. The painting remains one of the most important works in the history of art, and is a testament to the unique talent and vision of the Dutch artist. Self-Portrait with Two Circles. The Self-Portrait with Two Circles is a masterpiece by Rembrandt, one of the most recognized and admired painters of all time. This painting, created in 1660, represents an image of the artist in which his face can be seen in a detailed and realistic way. The work shows Rembrandt with a thoughtful and serious look, with slightly narrowed eyes and a look of concentration in his expression. The light that illuminates the artist's face is very intense and creates deep shadows on his face, giving him a sensation of volume and relief. The use of light is a characteristic element of Rembrandt's work, who has always stood out for his ability to create atmospheres and contrasts with light. In the painting, the artist appears dressed in dark and austere clothing, which emphasizes the concentration on his face. In addition, in the upper part of the work you can see two circles, one larger than the other, which seem to float in the air behind Rembrandt. These circles are a very intriguing element of the work and have given rise to many interpretations over time. Some art critics have suggested that the two circles represent the artist's eyes, while others have interpreted them to symbolize the two facets of Rembrandt's personality, or even his duality as an artist. The truth is that these circles give the work a sense of mystery and depth, and are a demonstration of Rembrandt's talent for creating works with multiple layers of meaning. The Self-Portrait with Two Circles is a work that stands out for Rembrandt's technique and ability to create a realistic and detailed image of himself. But beyond that, it is a work that shows the artist's personality and character, as well as his ability to create works with multiple levels of meaning. This painting is an example of Rembrandt's legacy as one of the most influential and talented painters in the history of art. The Night Watch. The Night Watch, also known as the Company of Frans Banning Kock and Willem van Ruytenberch, is a masterpiece by the Dutch artist Rembrandt van Rijn. The painting, made in 1642, is one of the most famous and emblematic works of the Dutch Baroque and has been the subject of numerous analyses and studies by art historians and critics. The work shows a scene from the Dutch militia in the 17th century, where you can see a group of officers and soldiers led by Captain Frans Banning Kock and his lieutenant Willem van Ruytenberch. The scene takes place in a night environment, which gives the work a mysterious and dramatic tone. Rembrandt used a very particular lighting technique, known as chiaroscuro, to highlight the figures and create depth in the scene. The painting is famous for the way in which Rembrandt portrays the characters of the militia. Instead of depicting them as heroic and ideal figures, as would have been expected in a work of this type, the artist presents them in a more realistic and human way. The characters have different facial expressions. Some are smiling, others seem to be joking, while others are more serious and focused on their task. In addition to the realistic representation of the characters, Rembrandt also focuses on details. Militia uniforms, weapons, and accessories are rendered with great precision and detail. The attention to detail is even more evident in the central figure of the work, Captain Frans Banning Kock. Rembrandt used a technique known as impasto, where paint is applied in thick layers, to give texture and relief to his clothes and his face. Another outstanding element of the painting is the composition. Rembrandt uses a diagonal composition, which means that the figures are arranged diagonally in the work. This technique gives the painting a sense of movement and dynamism. The central figure of Captain Frans Banning Kock is situated in the center of the composition, which gives it even more importance. Over the centuries, the Night Watch has been the subject of many interpretations and analysis. Some art historians have pointed out that the work is a representation of 17th-century Dutch democracy, where officers and soldiers are seen as equals in the painting. Others have argued that the work is a reflection on the role of the military in Dutch society at the time. In any case, what is undeniable is that the Night Watch is a masterpiece of Dutch Baroque art and one of Rembrandt's most important paintings. The work has been the subject of numerous studies and has inspired many artists over the centuries. If you get a chance to see the work in person, you won't be disappointed, as the work is even more impressive in person than in photographs. The Trustees of the Clothiers. The Trustees of the Drapers is a masterpiece by the famous Dutch artist Rembrandt van Rijn, painted in 1662 and considered one of the most outstanding works of his career. This work is in the permanent collection of the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, where it is one of the most popular attractions. The work depicts the trustees of the Drapers Guilds in Amsterdam, who were responsible for controlling the quality of cloth produced by local weavers. The trustees appear in the work seated at a table with their documents and work tools, in a serene environment and with great detail in lighting and textures. Rembrandt shows his skill as a portrait artist by capturing the personality and facial expressions of each of the trustees. The work reflects his mastery of the chiaroscuro technique, with lighting coming from an external source, creating an effect of depth in the scene and bringing the details of the composition to life. The realism of the work is also due to the attention to detail in the clothing and the objects that appear in it, such as the pen and inkwell on the table, the silk scarf of one of the trustees, and the small marks and scratches on the table surface. However, this work by Rembrandt is much more than a simple representation of the Drapers' trustees. The painting is also a reflection on power and responsibility in 17th-century Dutch society. The trustees in the painting represent the figure of the bureaucrat working on behalf of the common good, and the work is often interpreted as a criticism of corruption and the lack of transparency in the public administration of the time. The Trustees of the Drapers is an example of Rembrandt's ability to create works that combine virtuoso technique with deep and intelligent content. The work is a milestone in art history and remains one of the most important works of the Dutch Baroque.